Welcome back to Cruising. This is Sarah Gabrielli, and today I'm sitting down with Elaine Stott from Survivor Season 39.
I've been different my whole life, and I got picked on a lot. So I use humor to deflect. I make them laugh. That way they're laughing with me and not at me. I'm 5'2", a little busted can of biscuits. But that's the story of my life. Everybody underestimates me because of my size. But I got the heart of a lion and I'm strong like an ox. And they underestimate that big time.
Elaine is a factory worker from Kentucky who, back in 2019, at 41 years old, captivated audiences on her season of Survivor. We hadn't seen a lot of lesbians on mainstream reality TV before Elaine, and I like to think, as a dynamic character and fan favorite, that she helped to carve out a space for us moving forward. Survivor fans, like me, I will admit, got a lot of Elaine on our TVs that year, a lot of her one-liners and personable charm, but only really a glimpse of the fascinating journey that brought her to this point. And that's what we're really going to talk about today. You absolutely do not have to have seen her season or even Survivor at all to enjoy this episode, by the way. We aren't even going to get into Survivor until you have fully gotten to know Elaine herself. But first, Cruising has a big announcement for you. For a while now, we have been quietly working on a book adaptation of the first 2 seasons of the podcast. These are the episodes on the bars. So, The Lesbian Bar Chronicles, written by our producer Rachel Karp, is coming this May in 2026, and you can pre-order it now at cruisingpod.com/book. More to come on that.
I grew up in a household with my dad and my 3 brothers. And I was the biggest tomboy because I got hand-me-downs. I didn't really get my own toys unless my aunt bought them for me because my dad wasn't really going out and buying Barbies and things like that. So I was always just a tomboy. My brothers, they had hundreds and hundreds of girlfriends, and I always liked a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like I just knew when I was young. But you go through that whole thing where you want to be normal, and so you try to conform, I guess, and like push it out of your head or whatever. But I knew early on. But I'm a super private person, so I never spoke it out loud to anyone ever in my life, and probably until I was like in college. I mean, I had experiences with girls before college, but I never, put it out in the universe or whatever. I've always just kept my business to myself. And even though my family probably knew, I never had a coming out moment ever. The only time I ever talked to my dad about being gay is when I told him I was going to ask my girlfriend to marry me. I brought girlfriends home, but I was like, yo, this is my friend. I never had a conversation. Nothing. I was like, yo, I'm getting married. You going to come to the wedding? He's like, yeah. I'll be there. Walk me down the aisle. It's kind of weird, I know.
You said friend about your partners didn't you get married like within the past 5 years or something like that?
That's what I'm saying. Like my whole life, I've just been super private. Nobody's ever asked me, like the family's never questioned me. Like I'm sure there's been thousands of friends that thought it, but never said nothing. And I mean, I dated guys here and there, but everyone knew. We just never talked about it. It was just something never spoke of. And which my family, we were pretty dysfunctional. So one more thing like that wasn't a big surprise. So it's like, it wasn't nothing bad. I know a lot of people have super horrific stories when it comes to that, like family disowning them and things like that. I never really worried about it. I just kept my business to myself. And then when it was time to be like, Dad, I need to be walked down the aisle, he was like, cool. So he just wanted me to be happy. He's gone now. He passed last October. But damn, that makes me emotional. So I'm super glad that we got married in 2020 because, just here 5 years later, he's gone.
When you went into that conversation, were you nervous? Like, did you know for sure that he would be loving?
I wasn't nervous. My dad was a pretty abrasive man. We've never been like a super huggy, I love you, you know what I mean? Like anything like that. We were close. We've always been close. I was his only little girl. So it's like, I'm mini Johnny. My dad's name's Johnny. I'm mini Johnny. So I'm just like him. I'm just as hot-headed and hot-tempered, and, I speak my mind just like he did. So we had a lot of times where we butted heads, and there'd be years where we didn't talk, literally, because we were both that stubborn. But no, I wasn't. I knew he loved me, you know what I mean? So I was never worried. I was like, me and we've been together for a little while, and we're gonna get married. He's, would you walk me down the aisle? And he's like, yeah, when you doing it? And I was like, I'm not sure, what I mean? Next year, I think. And he's like, okay, cool. And he always told, my stepmom tells me stories because they would have conversations amongst themselves. And she said my dad would always say, like, he just wanted me to be happy. He didn't care. It didn't matter to him. Like, I was his little girl and that was it. Me and my mom had gotten into it one time. It's been 20 years ago now. I let her come stay at my house. We had a crazy relationship. She left when I was like 2. And so she was kind of in and out of my life, my whole life. And I was always the parent, basically. I'd give her money, put her in apartments, get her jobs, let her come live with me, buy her cars, like whatever. And she had come and stayed with me one time. And she was putting Bible verses all over the house about gay shit. You know what I mean? And I was like, what the like, why? What are you doing? And so we had like a knockdown, drag out fight. And I told her, I was like, listen, I had forgiven you for everything you've ever done to me in my life, because people try to use religion against you about being gay, whatever. I was like, you ever think that the things that you done to me is the reason I am the way that I am? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but in the heat of the moment, I was saying those things to her. And she finally stopped. She had a few mental problems, you know what I'm saying? So I never held anything she ever done against her. She was fighting her own demons and battles. But other than that one time, I've never really had conversations about being gay with my family ever. Even my super religious family, because my mom's side of the family that, believe in Jesus, go to church, da 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 da. I've never had conversations with them about it. They came to my wedding, my aunt came to my wedding and stuff, and I still never had a conversation with them about being the way that I am. I think it would turn into a religious debate, which, being a queer and I'm Christian, it's something that I battle with, inner demons, things like that, that I battle with anyway. So, but it still doesn't change who I am or how I feel.
So then outside of your family, is that something that you've experienced a lot of, is like criticism?
Yeah, there was, but it was more directed towards boys. That's always been a stigma with our community is because it's every guy's fantasy, you know what I mean? So they rationalize it, and to them it's okay. Now, unless you're mass like me, unless you're butch, and then it's not so acceptable or whatever. But there was homophobia about guys, gay guys. So it's like I'm not saying shit because I don't want to even be brought up in it.
So growing up, would you say it was something sort of in the back of your mind? You knew you had these kind of feelings towards girls and like you just pushed it down?
Yeah. Yeah, and until then, you can't push them down anymore, and then something happens with one of your friends or whatever, you kiss one or something, and it's reciprocated, and then it becomes like, hush, hush, keep your mouth shut, don't say nothing. I never pushed the envelope with anybody unless I was 1,000%. And don't ask me how you're 1,000% if nothing's ever said or nothing's ever, there's no touch, no feel. How do you know 1,000? I don't know. I have a gift. Straight women are my kryptonite. I've always had a gift when it come to that.
Okay, so when did that start happening? Like when you were a teenager?
Yeah, I just say you got like the prettiest girl in the world, and she's got the hottest dude, and blah blah blah. And I'd be like, yo, she's I bet you. I bet you I could. I bet you I could. I just always had that feeling. Maybe it's just overconfidence in myself. I don't know. Because it wasn't like I was the sharp dressed whatever. I'm rocking a mullet for God's sakes, but I could spit game. I'm not so good with whether or not they would stay with it. It would work, and then it would be super secretive and feel great, and then they've realized they're not that way or whatever the case may be. And most of the time, so it's like, just keep your mouth shut. Not that I would say that to anybody. It's like, let's just keep this between us. Because like I said, I've always been super private. I just live my life in the shadows, I guess. I don't know. I always look like a little 10-year-old boy ever since I was little bitty. I've had 3 haircuts in my life. The first one was a mullet. A mullet, I'm sure I came out of the birth canal rocking one. And from the time I was 0 years old until I was 20, I rocked one. I got called a boy a lot. And I literally was like, I would get chased out of the girls' bathroom if I went to the bathroom at school, which caused me to have trauma. And then I started when I got into middle school, I wouldn't even go to the bathroom. I would skip and go home.
Do you have like a specific memory of that happening? How old
Of
were
being
you?
chased out of the bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got chased out of the bathroom in elementary school and in middle school, high school.
Multiple
Every school I
times.
ever went to, I got chased out of the bathroom because I looked like a little boy, and they're like, "Get out of here." Well, instead of arguing with them and whatever, it just caused me embarrassment. I was like, "Yo, I'm bouncing." So I would just leave. You know what I mean? So when I was a kid, when I was little, I was super shy. I kept to myself a lot. And because I looked different, it got people to point fingers and talk about me and this, that, and the other. So I try to make myself small. So when moments like that would happen, it would be inner panic, like my worst nightmare. You know what I mean? I'd be freaking out. And so I would just leave. And so it became when I got into middle school, I wouldn't go to the bathroom at school. Like literally, if I had to go piss, I would skip class and go to the store or I would go to the hospital. When I lived in Florida, there was a hospital literally 2 blocks away. And I used to skip school and go hang out in the hospital and just run the halls because it'd be easier to find a bathroom with nobody in. You know what I'm saying? And so it just became something I done. And then when I got in high school, I would try to go to the bathroom, because as you grow, you mature and you realize some of these things you're afraid of, you really shouldn't be afraid of. So I would go to the bathroom and I would still get kicked out. You know what I mean? I had D hall one time. I used to get detention a lot. I used to get suspended a lot. I had the most write ups in our school history my freshman year in high school. I was pretty unruly. You know what I mean? I was a badass. So I had D hall and it was in school suspension, but we done it at the middle school. So I got sent to the middle school and we would have breaks where we'd come out and we'd go to the bathroom or whatever. And I was just hanging out by the gym door because again, I never went to the bathroom at school. And I was just hanging out by the gym door waiting for everybody to get done, just keeping my mouth shut. And at the same time, they had sixth grade concession where all the sixth graders came out and they got to buy sodas and get chips and this, that, and the other. And I was just hanging out. And she's like, "All right, all sixth graders, let's go." And I was like, just standing there. And she's like, "Let's go back to class." I was like, "I'm not in sixth grade." And she's like, "Sir, right now to class. I'm getting the principal." I was like, "Okay, like, what do I do in this situation?" I was a senior in high school, and she thought I was a sixth grade boy. So it's like, story of my life. So I just laughed at her. I was like, "Yo," and then I got a couple more days because I cussed her out. Because, like I said, I was a little mean. I was like, "Bitch, who are you talking to?" You know what I mean? I had attitude when I got older, but yeah, so it's been a ton of situations where I just got accused of being a boy most of my life. Anytime there was things that involved girl stuff, it's always been traumatic for me. And I give you the perfect example to set up the future of my life. I was literally I think I was in 5th grade. I needed a training bra. And so me and my dad and my youngest brother, they're all older than me, but my younger of the 3, we went to J.C. Penney's. My dad had a J.C. Penney's credit card, so we lived in J.C. Penney's when we needed school stuff, clothes or whatever. He would take us to J.C. Penney's. But my dad didn't shop with me. He would say, "All right, there's the section. You can go over there." And then he would leave because same thing. He had this embarrassment. So I go into the girls section to look for a training bra is what it was. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know sizes. I didn't know what I needed. I had no idea. So then you have my brother, who's a year and a half older than me. He's like holding up bras across freaking JC Penney's. He's like, "Sis, you think this will fit you?" And I'm like, "Oh my Jesus. Oh my God." He's like, "All right, come here." He's like, "Let's try this on." And so he'd be like holding bras up to me, like trying to, I'm like, yo, this is so freaking traumatic. He would like holler at people to come over, like, "Come help my sister. She needs your help." Like he didn't give a damn. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God. So like the big moments when it comes to female stuff, the big moments was always traumatizing as all get out for me. So it's like I try to block that shit out. You know what I mean? Like it's just been nuts like, when it came to that. So I always had this thing where I just kept everything private and quiet because I was raised in a man's world. And so anything that had to do with feminine whatever, I just kept it to myself, dealt with it the best I could. My brother's girlfriends would help me if I would ask questions or whatever, but it made me be a private person. So I always kept my business to myself.
So when you were getting in trouble at school, like detention and suspensions, was a lot of that because of skipping class and stuff to go pee?
Well, no, a lot of it's just because I was a badass. When I lived in Florida, I would skip and go home. When I lived in Kentucky, school's 20 minutes away and it's in country, you know what I'm saying? And so I would literally leave campus and go piss in the woods sometimes maybe, but, like, most of the time you could train yourself, and I just trained my body where I didn't have to go. A lot of the stuff I got in trouble for was just me being unruly, like, thoughts have always been wild. We don't take no shit, no lip, and so it was just a lot of that, just a lot of attitude.
So you're saying, like, your mouth basically is what would get
Yes,
you in trouble?
yes, yes, my mouth, a million times over my mouth. I'm not that way anymore. From the time I was elementary school, I was just mouthy, you know what I mean? Like, I guess the first time I ever got suspended, I was in 4th grade, and it's because I let a little girl cheat off me because she wasn't very smart, and I was trying to help her, and I let her cheat off me, and the teacher flunked me and gave me an F and sent me to the office, and I told her, "F you." You know what I mean? So I got suspended. I was doing a good thing, that's why I was so pissed, I was like, "Yo, I'm helping her, like,
Yeah.
whatever."
They probably didn't see it as you helping her, but
No, they didn't.
the story that you're telling about JCPenney sounds, like, sweet in its own way, even though it's traumatizing.
You gotta understand though, my dad worked 16-hour days and he was raising 4 kids. And so, we would wake up and decide on whether or not we would go to school. And we had DCF, CF, whatever it's called on us, CPS, whatever. And we would have them called on us. Like, he would have to bust our asses. Like, we were just wild. We were wild kids, and we'd done what we wanted when we wanted. And our house was the hangout. So dad wouldn't be home till like 8 o'clock at night. So he would leave like 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and the only thing that he would tell the boys is like, make sure your sister gets to school and she gets fed. Like, he would cuss them all to pieces, kick their door, and is like, take your sister to school. And then he'd come in there and be like, sis, I'll be home about 8. You better be home. Like, he'd be all sweet and nice to me, you know what I mean? But meaner and shit to the boys. So we done what we wanted. We ripped and ran and done what we wanted. And we got in a lot of trouble because of it. First time I ever smoked weed and drank, I was 5 years old. My mom was in and out of my life most of my life. We got taken away from her, and my dad was given custody, and she would come kidnap me, basically. We would go stay in the woods. We would stay in abandoned motels. Like, we would just go stay in the trashiest, craziest places with God knows who till my dad could find me. And then once my dad found me, he would bring me back.
So you were 2 when you got taken from her?
I think I was like 2 when my dad got custody. It might have been 3. When they were together, my mom, she had mental problems, and so she would always have guys over. She would sell my dad stuff, and I think he just got tired of her bullshit. And so he filed for divorce and proceeded to get custody because she didn't have anything stable. And in the beginning, she would try to be in our lives, but she was wild. I mean, maybe that's where we get some of that from. She roamed. Where my dad, he worked, he had a place to live. But because, she's our mom, my dad would still try to let us see her until she would do something crazy or mess up, and then she wouldn't be allowed. Well, even if she wasn't allowed, she would come because he worked the way he worked up until he died his whole life. So he would work 15, 16-hour days when we were little kids, and so he would be gone all day. So she would come, and she's like, "You want to come with me, sis? I'll take you." And I'd be like, "But what? Dad said we can't go." And she's like, "No, I talked to Dad. He said you can." Okay, like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I'd be out. My brothers were older, so like, sis, don't go. And I'd be like, but she said I can. So I would go with her. And so we would go, and literally we'd go in the woods in some abandoned cabin, and we would bathe in creeks and crazy shit. And we were in Wilmsburg where I live now. And we were at a gas station, and there was a 6-pack of tall boys in the back seat. And so I got a 6-pack of tall boys, and my mom opened it. I think her friend opened it, and they were pumping gas. And I was in the back, and I had a hold of it like this, and I was like, you know? And there was a guy, the only reason why I remember this is because there was a guy pumping gas, and he was like, what? And we got done, and we sped off. And that was when I was like 5 years old. And then the first time I smoked weed, we were in same thing. She was actually allowed to see us then, and I had went over for a visitation, and she lived in a shitty trailer park. Me and my brothers were there, and my stepdad, he took me in the back room. He's like, "Hey, come here." And he packed a pipe, and I'll never forget, it was like this big. He packed a pipe, and he hit it, and he lit it up, and he's like, "Here, try this." And I smoked, And I come back in the living room and my brother's like, what's wrong with you? And they're like hitting me with pillows. And I was like, oh, higher and damn it. And I was like, yo, what? I didn't know what was going on, but my brothers were like, you're messed up. And then my mom come home and she's like, sis, come here. She's like, David told me he let you hit the pipe. And she was I was like, yeah, what was that? I remember it like it was yesterday. My mom was wild. She really was. But she had a lot of problems. I don't blame her for none of it. I had a crazy childhood. And then when I was 8 years old, I started smoking cigarettes. My oldest brother, who was like 4 years, 5 years older than me, he's like in middle school, high school, and he's smoking. So then I was like sneaking and stealing cigarettes. And so I started smoking. And then I was like actually literally smoking like all the time at 10. And then I would like skip school, go like to the neighbors or down the road and rob a house and steal alcohol and then get trashed during the day. And then my brother would beat me up because I was drunk. Crazy shit.
At like 10 years old.
Yeah, at 10. And then that's what I told you. That's when I got my tattoo. You can't really see it.
Just across?
Yeah, at 10. Same thing. Like we were skipping school and the hangout was my house. So you'd have 10 kids skipping school, just hanging out. The only rule is you had to clean the house before you left. That way dad didn't know anybody was there. And they were all talking about get tattoos. They wanted to be cool. And we were all going to get tattoos, but everybody was scared to death to go first. And I was like, yo, I'll go. I don't give a shit. Let's do this. So I got a tattoo. And then my dad seen it and he's like, what is that? And I was like, it's a pin. I drew it on. He's like, go wash that shit off. And then I literally, this is no shit. I took a razor blade and I cut half of it out. I couldn't get the rest out because I couldn't bear the pain. And so I was like, it won't come off. And then he just never said anything else about it. And then I actually ended up tattooing it back like maybe a year later.
You
Just
sliced?
Yeah, I tried to cut it out. I cut like 2 little hooks off of it and then I just couldn't take it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I was like, yo, I'm just going to have to take this ass whooping because I can't do this.
Yeah, maybe less
But he never whooped me for it. But I'm surprised because that man would whoop your ass, but he never whooped me for it. I think he just couldn't believe it. I might have been 11. I might have been 11. He couldn't do nothing with us because he had to work to support us. And then finally, when I was like 7th grade, he sent us all off to different family where he could try to, get shit together, move us out of the neighborhood we were in because we were in a bad neighborhood with a bunch of bad kids. And then we came back and when I was 14, I ran away and then I got sent back to Kentucky and then I ended up staying up here and been up here ever since.
So when did your stepmom come into your life?
I've actually had 5 stepmoms.
Oh, okay.
The first stepmom came in, I think I was pre-K, and then we moved to Florida when I was like 6. And so from pre-K until I was 6, that's how long she was in our life. But she was nuts. She used to chase us with butcher knives to try to kill us. She would shoot holes in the ceiling. She would take the grocery money and buy heroin and be all doped up and then chase us. And it was just mad craziness. So he finally ended up leaving her. Maybe when I was like 8 or 9, he finally kicked her out.
Wow. So obviously she was really mentally ill.
Yeah, she had mental issues too.
Would something happen where she started threatening you?
No, she would get high and go crazy. Like there was one time she literally tried to grab onto the back of my dad's pickup truck and she almost sliced every one of her fingers off from holding onto the bed of the truck and then the metal sliding through her hands. And my brother Jerry Ray threw the keys because he was older. He didn't live in the house anymore. And we all left. We all piled in my dad's truck and my dad took us to our aunt's house. My brother Jerry had thrown the keys so she couldn't find them. And she walked straight over to him, picked him up and come to my aunt's house where we were at, trying to like beat the door down to get in. And then when we came home the next day, she was sitting in the living room. The house was trashed. Everything was busted. There was blood everywhere. Her fingers were almost cut off. And she's like, where'd you guys go? I bought pizza. I mean, it was just crazy, bro. There was always something going on, always something going down. And it was usually bad. So we had attitude. We were unruly. We done what we wanted and raised ourselves because our dad had to work all the time. Now, when he was home, we walked the line. That's for sure. Because he would wake us up Sunday morning and be like, "Get up, clean this house." Now, I had a different set of rules than the boys did. I had curfew. The boys didn't. I had to come home and check in. He would check my eyes to see if I was high or drunk because I was his little girl. You know what I mean? The boys, he's like, whatever. But with me, it was different. So I was the baby. But like I don't think back like when I was going through it, it was traumatic. But, like, thinking back on it now, I wouldn't change any of it because, like, it made me who I am, and I'm freaking great. So it's like, why would I take any of that away? You know, those scars, all those scars that I got when I was a kid made me into a well-rounded human being, and I have a lot of empathy because of it, I think.
How did you get your shit together?
Well, I left Florida. I ran away from home. I was 14 years old. We had moved to a different neighborhood. We had moved in with my dad's girlfriend, and everybody was out of school except for me and my youngest brother. And we were going to a rival school. My brothers, they were hellions too. They got in a lot of fights. There's gang stuff and shit like that. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I kicked a few people in the head I probably shouldn't have. So the school we were going to go to, there was a lot of these people there that we had fought, you know, from when we was in the other neighborhood. And so it's like, I didn't want to go to a new school. I had problems, you know, at the school where I knew people. It's like I didn't want to go to a new school, so I just quit. I would pretend like I'd get up, I'd get on the bus, my dad would wake me up for school, and I would go to school, and then as soon as I get there, I'd walk off. I did that for a couple months, and you know what's really messed up about it? Like I said, my mom was always in and out of my life when she had called, and I would tell her stuff because who's she? What is she gonna do? You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to that school. Well, she ended up telling on me. She told my dad. And my dad's like, "What?" So he went to school, and I was scared to death because I knew dad was gonna beat my ass. And you know what's messed up is when he went to school, they're like, "Yeah, she skipped a few times." It was like 3 months. I had not went to one class. Not one class. I got my schedule the first day, and I left and went and got high. Like, literally, I didn't go to school at all, but they were marking me off because they get money if you show up, so they were marking me there. They actually saved me an ass whooping. He was mad as shit, though. He's like, "You're going to school tomorrow." And so when he was like, "Yo, you're going," when I woke up the next morning, I left and went to the old neighborhood, and then I didn't come back for a little bit, and he was looking for me, and so I stayed gone for a little while.
Where did you stay?
Just with friends, crashing. I mean, I slept in an abandoned car once, abandoned buildings. I would sleep in some abandoned buildings and just hang with my friends and whatever. And then my younger brother, my youngest one, he tricked me. We were in our old neighborhood. He's like, "Sis, you're going home. His dad's worried sick about you, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Get the out. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going back." I was like, "Send me to Kentucky. I'm not gonna live down here. You know, forget that shit." Well, these people drove by and they threw a cup at us. And like I said, we used to fight all the time. They threw a cup at us. So he's like, "Let's go, sis, let's go." So we jumped in the car like we was gonna go fight. He's like, "I'm taking your ass home." I was like, and so he drove me home and I got in the van with my dad and he started cussing me and stuff. And I was like, "Listen, I don't want to be here." I was like, "Send me to Kentucky." And he sent me on to Kentucky like the next day. That's when I lived with my grandparents. And so I come to Kentucky when I was 14, and my grandpa and my granny, they were 72 and 78. That's why, see, I tried to get him to send me to Kentucky during the summer, and he wouldn't do it because my granny was sick. And he's like, "I'm not sending your badass up there with my mom and her sick." You know, I was like, "I'll be good. I promise. I'll be good." And so when he finally sent me up here, my granny died a couple months later. And so then it was just me and my grandpa. And I gave that old man some hell. I stole his truck, ran away. Like, I mean, I was mad. I was like, "Ain't nobody telling me nothing. I'm doing what I want." And then my senior year, I mean, I was bad, like getting in trouble. I'd get rolled up, get suspended. But my grandpa, every time I'd get suspended, he'd load me up in the truck. He would take me back to school and he would cuss those people out and say, "She's not staying home. Put her in school, put her in Saturday. She ain't staying home." So I never got to stay home. I would get suspended for 10 days and come home. I'd be like, "Yo, I can't go back for 10 days." He's like, "You'll be there tomorrow." And so it got to the point where I would go to class and he'd be like, "Go to class, sis." So I'll go on to class and the teachers would be like, "Yo, you're suspended." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. My grandpa's up there." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay." So they knew that it was going to work out, that I was just going to be there. I tell you what done it for me when I finally straightened up. My senior year, I smoked some bad shit and it was laced with something. I don't know what it was laced with. It messed me up like you wouldn't believe.
What was the experience like? You thought you were smoking weed.
Yeah, because I smoked weed like cigarettes by then. Like, literally, I would smoke an ounce a day with no problem. Just
Did you have like substance abuse issues from the time you were 5 and started?
no, I smoked it then, but I didn't, like, smoke it on a regular, and then when I started smoking cigarettes, I started smoking on a regular probably about 10. When I started smoking weed, it was about 12, and then I smoked it regular all the time.
Where did you get it? Like, how did you afford it?
Well, I would steal some of it because my cousin lived a couple doors down. She's dead and gone, rest in peace. But she lived a few doors down, and her husband sold it by the pounds. And I would go over there and babysit, and I would snatch and steal a bunch of it. You know what I mean? Until my older brother got accused of stealing it because I took too much one time, and so she came over kicking the door and screaming at my brother. Well, I had told my brother that I had been smoking because I wanted to be cool, and I was like, "Yo, let's go smoke." And so he told my cousin that it was me, so then I couldn't get any more, but then it's like I knew people that sold and this, that, and the other, so then it wasn't a big deal, but so no, I didn't have a substance abuse problem. I just loved smoking weed. I was a burnout. And, I would trip on acid here and there, maybe take a pill here and there, but that never was my thing. Drinking never was my thing. It was some of my brother's things, but it was never my thing. I would get drunk. We'd skip school, and the only way I would get my brother to take me with him is if I bought him the first 8 ball, which Old English 8 ball. I would buy him the first quart. That's the only way I could get to go with him is if I bought him beer. When I moved to Kentucky, I didn't know a lot of people when I first come up here, so I would steal my grandpa's beer and, go to school, and I would get hammered behind the band room and then go to class until I got to know people, and then I knew where to get weed. So I never had a substance abuse problem. I just like getting high. It helped me escape, you know? I don't think weed's so bad, but we had bought some shit from some people we had never bought some from, and, it was laced with something. Somebody said it was laced with embalming fluid. I don't know. I think they freaking put angel dust on that shit, and I've tripped on acid before, and it was the worst trip I've ever been on in my life. And every time I smoke it since, I have that same thing, flashback. Because I've tried smoking it after, a few years after. Now it's I don't never smoke, but
What was the experience that you had?
like I was dying. Like literally, like I was dying. Like I was having a panic attack. I thought my heart was gonna blow up. I thought I was going to die. And it was like I was crying, like I was messed up. I would have like flashback. I wouldn't even smoke, and I would have flashbacks in class. Literally, like I was tripping balls in class and freak out. So I was trying to come off. I was like, yo, I can't smoke no more. You know what I mean? Well, I had withdrawals from shit. You know what I'm saying? And so I was lashing out and being angry and just being nuts. And I had a falling out with my grandpa. And I was like, yo, I'm out of here. So I stole his truck. I ran away.
Do you remember what your fight with your grandpa was about?
He telling me I can't do something. Because, I'm the most stubborn. I am little Johnny. I'm the most stubborn person you could ever meet. I'm not no more. But at the time I was. And he was telling me I can't do something. I said, well, I'm gonna show you what I can do. You know what I mean? So
But before this, just to reiterate, you were smoking weed like on the hour
yeah,
all day long.
yeah, just smoked out. And my grandpa, when my granny was alive, he'd be like, I want you to look at the appetite to that girl. She can eat like nobody's business because I'd be higher than eating Granny's cooking. That shit was so good. I'd be like, so they didn't know, they're in their 70s, you know what I mean? So how would they know? And then when I got a hold of bad shit, I couldn't smoke out anymore. Every time I tried to smoke, I would freak out. I would have a massive freak out. And so I was like, yo, I gotta quit smoking. Well, then we had a falling out. He's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I was like, yo, I'm going anyway. And I stole his truck. I was gone for a couple weeks or whatever. Then I came back and I was grounded. And so here it was, I was grounded. I couldn't smoke weed. I was struggling. And I had a teacher in high school that was also the basketball coach. And I told him, I was like, listen, I'm trying to come off drugs, man. I was like, I don't want to sit still in your class. I don't want to be in here. I don't want to do this shit. I don't want to put up with these people. I don't like none of it. And he's like, yo, if you ever need, just get up and walk around. He's like, you should come out and play basketball. I'm like, what? I hadn't played basketball since I was like in second grade. I played street ball, where you foul the shit out of people and then fight it out, whatever. And so I was grounded and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play basketball. I went out for the team. I made the team. I started playing basketball. The coach was a really good influence on me. I met some good friends on the basketball team and stuff. And then it kept me out of trouble because I had to stay out of trouble to get to play. I mean, I didn't play a lot because I'd never played organized sports. So I was just like an animal. Go foul somebody, you know what I mean? I just go in there and clobber somebody or whatever. But I loved it. So I had to stay out of trouble and I had to keep my grades up, which I never had other than in middle school. When I got to high school, I had decent grades. I've always been smart, so it was like it wasn't super hard. I just done it out of like rebellion, not doing my work or not doing because I didn't want to. I'll do it when I want. And so I started being good and doing good for basketball.
The holidays are approaching, and everyone knows that this time of year, the sooner you can get things done, the better. For both shoppers and businesses, the best time to score great deals during the holidays is during that Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. And if you have your own business, whether you've been around the block a few times or this is your first year going through the holiday sale rush, the most important thing you can have is a platform that can handle everything that's about to be thrown at you. This is a crucial time for your business and your customers. And with Shopify, you can be sure that your tools and platform are ready for anything that comes your way. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names to entrepreneurs who will be participating in their first Black Friday, Cyber Monday this year. With everything else going on, you probably don't have time to spend hours poring over every little detail in your online store. That's why Shopify's thousands of templates and tools help you streamline website creation and make sure that your site isn't just aesthetically pleasing, but functional and easy to use. Shopify's expedited checkout, Shop Pay, saves customer information and reduces hassle. And the best part is that it's been proven to boost conversions, meaning you'll see less abandoned carts and more profits. You can also stress less knowing that Shopify's award-winning customer support team is on standby 24/7 to help with any issues that arise, allowing you to get back to your business as fast as possible. This Black Friday, join the thousands of new entrepreneurs hearing for the first time with Shopify. Sign up for your free trial today at shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm and make this Black Friday one to remember.
Goodbye, Kyle!
Did the sound of those words call to you like Pavlov's dog? Then you might enjoy our podcast, Turtle Time.
Every week, you can join me, Riley Hamilton, and my co-host, Amy Scarlotta, as we cover the most pressing Bravo news and dig into the new episodes to answer important questions like, who the hell is Adrian Malouf in this world?
Listen to Turtle Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes every Wednesday and Friday.
The Regency era. You might know it as the time when Bridgerton takes place, or it's the time when Jane Austen wrote her books. The Regency era was also an explosive time of social change, sex scandals, and maybe the worst king in British history. Vulgar History's new season is all about the Regency era, the balls, the gowns, and all the scandal. Listen to Vulgar History Regency era wherever you get podcasts.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Tom.
So big news to share, right?
Yes, huge, monumental, earth-shaking.
Heartbeat sound effect big. Mate is back.
That's right. After a brief snack nap.
We're coming back. We're picking snacks.
We're eating snacks.
We're rating snacks.
Like the snackologists we were born to be.
Mate is back.
Mike and Tom eat snacks.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Unless you get them from a snack machine, in which case, call us.
Call us.
I turned 18 in January. And again, because I'm the most stubborn person you'd ever meet in your life, I told my grandpa, I was like, I'm 18. I'm f***ing out of here. And he said, you can't go anywhere. You ain't got nowhere to go. I said, shit, I can go anywhere. You know what I mean? So I packed me a little red book bag and I walked down the street and I never went back. I never moved back in. I never, nothing. And I lived with friends. I lived with teammates. I lived with people I met from different places. I would go stay with them. But I went to school every day because if I didn't go to school, I didn't play basketball. I would literally go stay 30 minutes from school somewhere, and then I would have to hitchhike to school, try to find a ride. And then after school was over, I'd try to find somewhere to stay. And so it became like this cycle. Well, I had my godmother was my 9th grade English teacher. And when I first came into her class, she's like, I know your dad. I was like, you don't know my dad. Again, this attitude. And she's like, yeah, I do. Well, she did. Her and my dad were friends when we were kids. They went to high school together, and he actually lived with her and her first husband. And so there was this crazy connection that I didn't even know about. And so I had her in English all throughout high school. In my senior year, again, because I wasn't living with my grandpa and I didn't have a place to stay, I would go stay wherever. And sometimes I wouldn't get to school till lunch. As long as I came to school, I could play. Didn't matter what time I got there. Well, I had her first hour. And so she started bitching at me. She's like, you've got to start coming to my class. I said, listen, lady, I don't have a place to stay. And I'm more worried about where I'm sleeping. And if that place takes me 45 minutes from here and I ain't worried about your class. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, well, it's not even a half mile from the school, quarter mile from the school. She's like, if you ever need a place to stay, my place is always unlocked. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, even though I was crashing with a lot of people, I would get like not really embarrassed about it, but I didn't want to wear my welcome out. So like if I come and stayed with you for a week, even if I didn't have anywhere to go, I'd be like, yo, okay, I appreciate it. No, I got somewhere. Yeah, I'm good. I promise, And then I would be like, what am I doing? Where am I going? And so there was one time I was shooting basketball in the gym until they turned the lights out after a game one night. And coach was like, you got somewhere to go? Because I'd stayed with my coach before. He's like, you got somewhere to go? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I promise I'm good. And they turned the lights out and I took off walking and it was snowing. And so I walked down the school road and I come to the end of the road and I was sitting at a gas station and I was like, where am I going to go? I have nowhere to go. And I was like, you could go to Miss Thurm's house right up the road. So I did. I walked up to the house. I crept in real quiet. I went and laid on the couch and I just laid down. And then like a little while later, I heard somebody creeping through the house, which was her husband. And I pretended like I was sleeping. And he was in his underwear and everything. And he come in there and he went back in there and he said, Jenny, he said, there's some kid laying on our couch. And she come in there and looked and went back. She said, she called me Laney. She's like, that's just Laney. It's okay. And the next morning, 7:00, she's like, get up, we're going to school. And so she took me to school. And anytime I didn't have anywhere to go or whatever, I would go stay at her house. Well, then it just got more frequent where I would stay more often. It made it easier because she became like my mom. And so eventually she cleared a drawer out and gave me 3 drawers in a dresser. And I slept in the living room and I just became part of the family. And so I started living with her. I finished school out. Everything just started happening the way it was supposed to be happening. And then you flash forward to now, I had been her caregiver for the last 10 years, cleaning up, feeding her, taking care of her, bathing her. And it was just full circle. She gave to me when I needed it the most, even though she was giving me things I didn't understand at the time I needed. I was just thinking about crashing on the couch, and it was actually really helping me in general. So that makes me emotional too. That's how I ended up with my godmother. She had 2 daughters, and it was hard to explain, like, who's this? You know what I mean? And her daughters started calling me her sister and this, that, and the other. So I just started telling everybody she was my godmother because I didn't know how to explain it. But what's crazy is that I never called her Jenny. I always called her Miss Derm until I gave her the nickname Diva. And then I called her Diva from thereafter. She's like, you can call me Jenny. I was like, no, I can't. And then I started calling her Diva, and then that's what it became, Diva. Because she was dramatic. She was freaking great, though.
Yeah, how'd she get that nickname?
She was dramatic, and she was really, what's the word, eclectic? She was strange. And she would have these dramatic moments where she would be like, oh, and like everything was so dramatized. And I was like, oh my God, you were such a diva. And we would laugh about it. And then it caught on. And so that's what I called her. And that's what other people started calling her. It's just something. And she ended up loving the nickname, but she was like my mom, the mom that I needed.
Are you able to articulate what was different about living with her versus when you were with your grandfather or your dad and brother?
I don't know. I think part of the reason why I never went back to my grandpa's house because I said I never would, as far as moving back in. Now I still had a great relationship with my grandpa. He was the closest person to me, and vice versa. Like we had a super great relationship. It's just when I say something, I stand on business, and if I have to die on that hill, I will. And I told him, I was like, yo, if I have to sleep in a ditch, I won't sleep here. And because I'm so stubborn and hard-headed, even if it's not good for me, I would still take it because of what I said. I'm not like that anymore. I can be at some things, but it was just a lot about, I'm independent, I'm strong. I can do whatever I say. That was the reason why I didn't go back home because he wanted me to come back home all the time. And even when I moved in with her, he thought it was great because she was a great person. He's like, but you can come home. And then when I went to college, he's like, you can come home. I just never did. The only time I went home, when I finally went home, is that I was 25 years old and I went to college. And I actually graduated. I double majored. But, I went to college. I partied a lot. It wasn't about school for me. It was just about keeping the party going, hanging with friends, whatever. Because I never really thought about a future for myself. That never crossed my mind of like, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be? Whatever. It was just, what's going on right now. And so when I was in college, I lived in the housing. If you lived in like the government housing when you're a college student, you get it basically for free. Well, after I graduated, they're like, all right, your rent is this. And I'm like, what? It went from like $20 to like $400. So I called my grandpa. I said, what do you think about me buying a trailer and moving up beside of you? Because ever since I was a kid, my grandpa's house sit here. And then we had lived in a trailer up the hill. So literally, like, you could throw a rock and hit the house. But we lived there when I was a kid, when I was a little bitty, like before school. And so me and him would sit on the porch and bullshit. He's like, what are you going to do? I said, you going to take care of me the rest of my life. I'm going to move back up here and I'm going to put a trailer right there and I'm going to live there forever. And he, that'd be fine. He's like, it's got septic and electric already set up, blah, blah, blah. So we would always talk about that anyway. Well, when the whole rent came up, I was like, I ain't paying rent. So I called my grandpa. I said, Grandpa, what do you think about? He's like, okay. He's like, let me see what I can do. And then like within, I don't know, 6 months or something, my brother Jason actually gave him the money for, which I didn't know till later. My brother Jason had gave him the money to get everything started or whatever. And he bought a trailer. And so I went up there to look at it and I went in, you could see outside. It was the biggest piece of trash. I had stayed in worse places, but this place was, and I was like, Grandpa, this is a shithole. And he's like, I'd be fine. And we worked on the floors. We put up walls. And then I started working at the factory I'm actually still at when I was 26 years old. And I worked second shift. And I would get the guys from work to come home and help me work on my trailer after work, at 5 a.m. We'd be up there freaking, doing whatever until we got it fixed. And then I moved in and then I lived there up until 4 years ago when my godmother passed and I moved in here.
Is this her house?
Yeah, this is her house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So her oldest daughter had passed away, unfortunately, when she was like 36 years old. She was 2 years younger than me. And so when she was 36 years old, her daughter died. And her other daughter she fights her own demons and has for the past 15 years now. And because of those demons and that being her only heir, basically, we were worried about her losing everything she had. So she actually gave me everything she owned a few years back. And she passed away 2 years ago. So, it was mine while she was alive. But so I had this big old house sitting here empty and I still lived on the farm in a trailer. And my wife's like, we need to move to the house. I didn't want to move. I really didn't. I didn't want to move. The farm had been my whole life. I lived there from 14 on, and then I had lived there when I was younger. So there was only a gap year, maybe 5, 6 years my whole life that I didn't live on the farm. And after my grandpa passed, I went through a really bad depression because of his passing. I struggled because I took care of him until he died. He had given me power of attorney, and I took care of him and fed him and until he passed. And so I struggled. And the only thing I knew to help me through that is I worked on the farm. That's the only thing that got me through it. For 2 years, I threw myself into working on the farm. And so I had a hard time letting that go. My wife actually moved and lived here a year before I moved.
How did you and Tanya meet?
So me and her worked together at the factory where I work now. We've actually both been there 20 years. She's been there longer because I took 2 years off when I did Survivor. And I didn't like her. I hated her. I freaking hated her. Couldn't stand her. Well, Crystal, listen, if you ever got to meet Crystal, she is one of the funniest people you'll ever meet in your life. She is freaking hilarious. Even though I'm pessimistic as all get out, and my wife calls me a grumpy old man, I love laughing, and I love being goofy, and I love being funny. So we would just roll and laugh on the line. I'm a smoker. So when I go to break, I go sit in the smoke room. Crystal's a non-smoker. She gets bronchitis, is what she would say. Take me around me smoking, I get bronchitis. So I would go sit in the smoke room, and Crystal would sit with Tanya. And that went like that for years. And Tanya checked parts in quality. She would come to my line and check parts every 2 hours, and her and Crystal would hee-haw and this, that, and the other. And I'd be like, I don't like her. I think she's a bitch. I don't like her, da-da-da-da. We never got along. Tanya thought I was an asshole. She didn't like me either, whatever. Well, Crystal decided she was going back to school, and so she was quitting. And so the last couple months she worked, we would all go in the break room and hang out together because it's like, these are the last few months I'm going to get to hang out with my best friend. So like, I'm going to hang out with her. So I'm going to smoke after and take break with them. Funny is my big thing. I love being funny. I love cutting up. And so when we would hang out at break, I'm like, yo, she's actually okay. Like, she's hilarious. She's like blonde hilarious. You know, she says some funny shit she doesn't mean funny. But so we started being cool. Well, when Crystal quit, Tanya didn't have anybody to hang out with. So me and Tanya kept hanging out. And she would say stuff to me. I was like, get the out of here. She would just talk trash, like talk about, you know, how I'd be like, yo, you know, you'd leave your girlfriend for me or whatever. And I'm like, get out of here. I ain't doing none of that. You know, she would just talk smack. And she was a pretty girl. So it's like, I don't really know if she's used to people turning her down or not. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm like, get out, you're out of your mind. You know, I think it ate her up. I think it got to her. She would talk smack about, you know, kissing or something. And one day I just told her, I said, put your money where your mouth is. Like, you talk all this shit. Like, are you about it? Like, are you really? Because she was married. And, you know, I had a girlfriend that I was with for 10 years. And then finally I was like, yo, I mean, you want to go to the bathroom? You know, we used to go, so at work, there's this back bathroom. We had took office chairs and rolled them back there, and we made it like our office. And we called it the Momo Lounge because I called Crystal Mo and she calls me Mo. It's a weird story. I woke up one morning and I kept saying the word Mo. And then when I come to work, like she would ask me something, I'd be like, I don't Mo. So everything became Mo for the day. So we turned it into like a running joke. Like people would say stuff to us and we would end with Mo. And we would think it was hilarious and the funniest shit ever. And other people wouldn't laugh, but we would be rolling, crying, laughing so hard. She called me Mo. I call her Mo. Well, when we started rolling the chairs to the back bathroom where we could hide out and take illegal breaks, we called it the Momo Lounge. So everybody would come back here and hang out and take an extra 15-minute break or whatever and hide in the bathroom. And so I told Tanya, I was like, let's go to the bathroom. Put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? And we went back there and made out. So it's like, from then on, like we would have secret makeout sessions and we would meet up after work on the down low and shit like that. And then it just turned into something, basically.
And so she left her husband.
Yeah, she left her husband. I left my girlfriend of 10 years. Her mom was super against us. And so she picked me. And her mom quit talking to her for about 6 months, 8 months, and wouldn't speak to her because, you know, she gonna grab that skill liquor, drag her by the hair, you know, like all kinds of crazy shit. And they have a great relationship, like really super close. So Tanya was devastated when that happened. I wasn't allowed at her house. I wasn't allowed for holidays, nothing. And what turned it around is she had went to the Dollar General and there was some other family that was talking about Tanya, saying how she disgraced the name, being a lesbian, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it ran all through her. She couldn't believe somebody was saying that about our daughter. And she's like, oh, I would have scratched her eyes out. You know, she was mad as shit. And I think in that moment, she realized that it doesn't matter. That's still her daughter. And so it gave her a wake-up call. I love my daughter. I don't care what she is. That's my daughter. But it took someone else talking shit in order for her to realize that. After that, I was invited to Christmas. And then when I went to propose, she come up to the house. That's when all the Survivor people would come to the house. And I told her, I said, Dorothy, I'm going to propose to Tanya today. I said, I know you don't agree with it. I said, I get it, but this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, well, I can't be here. And her grandson tried to ask her to stay, Tanya's oldest son. He's like, you know, Mama, they're going to be together. And she's like, I can't support it. Can't, da, da, da. And she left. And I proposed. And then over the next year, I think she's seen that it's not really about the girl. It's not about that. It's about the love and the connection and how you treat each other. She sees it now. You have to allow people to like come to terms with it.
Mm-hmm. How did you end up on a reality show?
Me and my godmother, we used to watch Survivor all the time. It was our thing. You know, we'd call each other on the phone. We would strategize, do this, that, and the other. And it was something that bonded me and her. And when I would get mad at her, like I wouldn't watch the episode, so we couldn't talk about it. And she would get so upset. And I would just laugh. And she's like, Lady, you got to watch the episode. I have to talk to you. It just became our thing. And then honestly, like when her daughter died, you know, her daughter died in April of 2016. And 2 months later, her husband died. And then in November of that same year, she had a stroke. So the year was a shitty year. But anytime after every bad thing that happened, like after her daughter passed, we laid in bed for like a week and watched old Survivor. We didn't talk. We just watched Survivor. It was just something that bonded us together. And so when I was in college, when it came out in 2001, I told her, I was like, I want to go on that. She's like, oh my God, Lainey, that would be so great. And so like, she was always going to be my family visit person. Like we talked about this for years, and she would actually practice eating horrible shit. Cause back in the day, whenever I've first talked about it or whatever, you would eat horrible stuff. The family would have to eat bugs and this, that, and the other. So she would like come up with these concoctions and then try to choke them down. Like she just knew that I was going to be on the show and she was going to prepare. You flash forward when my grandpa passed when I was 30. I was, like I said, I was severely depressed. And my godmother came to me. She's like, Lainey, she's like, let's make a tape. Because, you know, VHS tape is what it was back then. She's like, let's make a tape. Yeah, that was the first tape I made. It was after my grandpa passed. And she's like, let's make a tape. Let's make a Survivor tape. It'd be so much fun. And we made that tape and we had the best day. So Survivor's always been this weird thing that like brought us out of some messed up shit. Flash forward a few years and they were having open casting like 30 minutes from him. She's like, Lainey, you gotta go. So we went up there and we slammed beers. I got drunk and I had a great interview, like 200 people watching the interview. Like, and I had everybody laughing and rolling. Never got a call, nothing. But we had a great day and we had so much fun. 2019, she called me, and this is 3 years after her daughter or husband died. She had her stroke 2 months before her stroke or something like that. She called me up and she's like, Lainey, let's go dancing. Me, her, and her daughter used to go to the VFW and we would go drink and dance and just have a great time. And she's like, I just need to have a good time. Well, I work 12-hour shifts 6, 7 days a week sometimes. And I had worked, I don't know how long. I said, Diva, I'm tired. I can't. I was like, I tell you what, I was like, me and Tanya will come over. We'll play cards. She loved playing rummy. I was like, we'll come over and we'll play rummy. She's like, well, okay, I guess. So we come over. We had a great night. It was fun, but she really wanted to go dancing like the old days. Well, flash forward, she had a stroke, and then she could never dance again. When Survivor came, open casting the Bowling Green, she's like, Lainey, they're having open casting in Bowling Green. I said, you know, I've tried. I said, she said, you kind of just over it. I said, well, I would love to go. I was like, but yeah. And she's like, Lainey, you have to do this. She said, you didn't take me dancing when I asked you to. You have to do this. And I was like, damn. Damn. And she started laughing. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm guilting you into it. And I was like, well, I'll think about it. She's like, okay, well, just let me know. Well, I went to work the next day. I said, do you want to go to Bowling Green after work and go try out for Survivor? And Tanya's like, if you want to, whatever. And I called my godmother. I was like, I'm going. She was the happiest she had been since before her daughter had died. Like, she was so happy. She was so excited. She couldn't contain herself. I went and I did a shitty job. I did better in London where I was drinking and had everybody rolling. I did great. Didn't call me. I did a shitty job. I was nervous. They had changed the format and what I was used to doing, like they didn't do anymore. And you had to answer these questions. And I went through and I flubbed it up. And I came out and I told Tanya, I was like, yo, I messed that up. But I called my godmother and she's like, how'd you do? I was like, I didn't do too good. I said, but we had the best day. It was so much fun. She's like, well, that's okay, honey. You know, maybe, you know, some other time, whatever. September 25th is when I tried out. October 6th, my mom went into a coma and she had to have emergency brain surgery. October 6th. And I was in the hospital with her and they called me like the following week. It was like October 12th. They called me and like, hey, this is Penny Lane from Survivor. And I was like, listen, this is not a good time to be messing with me. If this is my friends, I swear to you, this is not a good time. I had been staying in the hospital with my mom and I didn't believe who she was. She like had to send me a picture of who she was. And she still never lets that down. She's like, I had to send you a picture of my license. I was like, no, you didn't. And I called my godmother and she was like over the moon, like crying. And the build up to me going and was just like, she was so excited, so looking forward to it. She couldn't wait. She cried and she's like, we have dreamt of this for so long. And she feels like, I feel like we did this. And we did. I went to finals in December and 4 days after I was back, my mom passed. And then so they didn't know if I was going to go. And then finally I got to go. But I was just emotionally in a different place. I was in a totally different place than like game mode. I wasn't in game mode. I was living an adventure and trying to do a little soul searching at the same time. But my godmother was still happy as a lark, and she knew that if I didn't get voted out first, that I would win, and then that they was never going to let me win. She knew you know what I mean? Like, so when I come home and she was disappointed I didn't win, but at the same time, like, she couldn't believe it. And then when it aired, we would have viewing parties. So she came to my viewing parties, her and her best friend, and it was just a big ordeal.
She must have been so insanely proud because not only for anyone that hasn't seen Elaine on Survivor, like you have the best edit of your whole season. Like from day one, everyone's like, oh, this person's amazing. Like we're going to have to watch out for her. That's your entire storyline is like being likable.
So whenever we did the viewing party, we actually did it at the movie theater. The movie theater was like plumb packed and they showed it on the big screen. So it made it even twice as good because, the first episode was literally all about me. And so like she was through the roof, over the moon. And then at the end, when I was given the Sia money, like I have videos of that too, where she was crying and so happy. And it was just a great, great experience. My dad got to come to the finale. My godmother didn't want to come because she didn't want to be a burden because she was in a wheelchair and stuff and couldn't hardly walk. And she just didn't want me to have to hassle with her, which I wish I would have forced her to come because she could have met Jeff. That would have been one of her lifelong dreams. But I just couldn't talk her into it. She didn't want to run my time, but I wish I would have made her go. But anyway, my dad got to go. So that's super special to me that he got to go and be there and see me win the money and things like that. And he was super proud when I was on there too. And then, when Sandra talked shit, she's like, this one don't know nothing, because I kept saying at all the tribals, I was like, I don't know what's going on, which I knew what was going on, but I didn't want to say that. So when Sandra's sitting there saying this and don't know nothing, my dad's cussing the screen. So he was super proud too. Like he was super happy I got to live my dream. But my godmother was always my family visit person. And then she had the stroke. She couldn't be. And then I put Tanya on there. And then my dad. And, my dad's gone now. So it's like, I'm so glad I took Tanya, but part of me wishes I would have put my dad first so he would have got to experience that. And then I could forever have that moment on TV.
Yeah. He came to the finale. I'm sure he must have been just so proud.
He was.
Let's talk about the Sia money. So for like a few seasons, does she still do it?
She quit.
Sia is a big Survivor fan and would give money to just like people that she liked and was like inspired by. And so it's always like, oh, who's going to get the Sia money? But people obviously kind of knew that you were going to get it.
Yeah. Jeff was just like, this year, Sia's actually going to give 3 people money. And I was like, oh, really? 3 people? Because I wasn't sure. I mean, people had said I was going to get it, but I don't never bank on stuff like that. So I didn't know if I was going to get it or not. And then he gave money. They gave money to Jamal. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Jamal got money. And then he's like, Elaine. And I was like, me? You going to give something to me? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, all right. I was thinking like Jamal, I was like thinking like 15,000. And so when he said $100,000, I was like, yo, what? That was insane. I cried, I couldn't help it. It's like, you don't understand how much that means to me. In the videos of my godmother, like she says, like people don't understand what 50,000 or whatever would mean to you because, I'm poor white trash from the holler, you know what I mean? Like, so that it meant the world to me that happened. I couldn't believe it. And then they turned around and gave Janet 100,000. It's like, yo, that's crazy. So I'm forever grateful to see it. Like I said, I bought the farm with that money.
The farm is like your grandpa's property?
Well, it was. My grandpa had deeded me the spot where my trailer was on. He had gave me a lifetime deed, a living deed. It's where, I can live there for my life if I wanted to the little piece of property I lived on. When my grandpa passed, then it became my dad and my uncle owned it. Well, my dad deeded me his half. And then when Sia gave me the money for Survivor, I bought my uncle out. So I own the farm.
You still own it and what do you do with it?
I actually rent my trailer out that's up there. I go up there and mow. My bush hog has been tore up, so I haven't really been it's like 45 acres, so I haven't really been able to take care of the fields the way I should have. But, my dad was the one that always fixed my tractor. And when he had his stroke back in 20, 22 or whatever when he had his stroke. It's not been the same since. When my grandpa, after he passed, it was all I could focus on was the farm. I couldn't think of anything else but the farm, taking care of it the way he wanted it took care of. The farm still means a tremendous amount to me.
Yeah. I feel like they totally missed out on telling, like, more of your life story. They give us so much Elaine, and yet I'm the one getting this story of you starting to drink at 5, like
Well, it's because my life's been crazy, and it's not who I am now. It's how I grew up. And like I said, all that stuff made me who I am. Like now kindness is my thing, and it's like I'm good to anybody and everybody. And that's who I am now. That's who I was. I'm still an asshole from time to time. I mean, everybody is, but I'm not the asshole I used to be, and not the problem child I was. But a lot of it had to do with emotional trauma and shit you trying to deal with when you don't know how to deal with it, so you lash out. And I think whenever I went on the show, I think they wanted to focus more on what kind of person I am right now. Because I will go to a room and stand and tell jokes for 30 minutes. That actually happens a lot more if I'm nervous. Because when I'm nervous, I feel like I need to make people laugh. And so they're not laughing at me. You know what I mean? I feel like I need to put on a show. And so I did a lot of that the first few days because I was nervous. So then everybody loved me. And it's like, oh, she's going to go. So it like kind of backfired.
Right. If you'd been in a clearer headspace, then maybe as like a huge fan and strategist, you would have maybe known to tone it down. But that still sounds impossible.
That's the thing. It's like, can you really turn it off? Can I really turn it off? Like who I am? You know what I mean? Like, can I really turn it off? I don't know, because it would be hard not to joke and cut up. Life is so depressing and there's so many bad things that happen. That goes back to like me and Tanya. Like the reason why we're together is because we think, we're hilarious together. We have a great time and we laugh a lot. We don't fight. Laughter is always the best medicine in every situation. So I fall back on that. First and foremost, that's the first thing I do is if I start feeling uncomfortable, I will start joking. I will start cutting up. I'll start, trying to make you laugh and make you loosen up a little bit. So I don't really know if I could turn it off. Maybe turn it down, which I did do, but it was already too late.
But it's lucky that other people maybe can't hide their brains, which you were able to do, like probably just with your accent, right?
People think I'm stupid, right? Yeah. But I play a lot of that redneck. I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Who knows? You tell me, But there's a lot more strategy to me than what I showed. Yeah, like people thought I wasn't very smart. And it's like, but because of the situation, I really wasn't thinking. But I wasn't thinking because I can't think. I was just thinking because I was like, I just lost my mom. Like we had a crazy relationship. And like, at least while she was alive, there was always the hope of maybe we could have that, what me and my godmother had. But then once somebody's gone, that hope is gone because they're gone. Then you have a lot of guilt of you not doing things you should have done. Maybe you should have been a little kinder or nicer or shouldn't have said something or whatever. So then you do that whole guilt thing with like running through it and messing yourself up. And I did a lot of that, but I also found a lot of forgiveness for myself. And like I said, I'd already forgiven my mom. I always feel like you're right where you're supposed to be and things happen the way it's supposed to. And so I just wasn't meant to win, but I was meant to find what I found. So I'm good with that. You get me emotional?
I'm so sorry.
I get myself emotional. I talk myself into it. Shut up, Elaine.
I mean, I've been leading you there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of reflection that happens, like unavoidably. You have so much free time out on the island. Of course that happens, yeah.
You get all kinds of time. And like the nights, that's what I said, the nights are really long. And you just sit and think. And if you got shit that's on your mind, it drives you crazy. So it's like, you ain't got no other choice but to like deal with it a little bit. You know what I mean? And so I was a little removed from the game, more so than I should have been. But that's okay. That's just how it was supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Were you nervous to go and put yourself out there like that? Because really anything in your personal life is fair game.
Well, I wasn't nervous. Like I wasn't nervous about like them finding out about my family. You got to do all the psych stuff. Like I wasn't nervous about none of that. I wanted to win. So I was nervous about that. And then like people was like, oh, being gay. What about being gay? Like that wasn't like a thing. I mean, we talked about it. There would be stuff that would come up about, my sexuality or whatever, but I'm a lot like a lot of people, but I think I'm pretty unique I don't think they've had a lot of people like me. They've had people similar, you could say like the lesbians that's been on the new era and stuff, Teeny and Evie and things like that. We are similar in looks, but there's nothing alike about us. I think I'm super different than anybody they've had.
Well, I also feel like there were not many lesbians at all before you. Like, obviously, there's season 9, Scout and Amy, who have their loved ones on. But there are so many, like, character types that they fill. And they fill character types of gay men for however many years. And if there were queer women, like, we didn't know that they were queer. That wasn't really talked about.
I don't think they discussed any of that or whatever. But yeah, so they hadn't seen anyone like me in a long time.
Yeah, and then you carved out this space where you're like the most beloved character on that season.
Yeah.
It's very like clear that you're a lesbian. I don't remember exactly what said about it.
Yeah, there wasn't much said, but yeah.
And then, I mean, they've definitely had casting shifts and stuff like that on the casting team, but also I feel like they probably saw the success of you as a character and was like, oh, America can love a lesbian? Okay.
Well, see, that's the crazy thing. I live in the Bible Belt, and so like there's a lot of religious people around here, and I would go to the store or whatever. I don't know if you know what Pentecostal is. Super religious, skirts to the floor, hair to their ass, but they're like, we loved you, but we really hope that you come out of that, like, and it's like, yo, well, I hope so too one day. I don't know. What do you say to that? But there was some times when I went to a gay bar and I did a meet and greet there, and a kid come up to me and he's like, my parents watched you on TV and they didn't find out till later that you were gay. They didn't realize until later that you were gay. But from loving you, they kind of like accepted me in a sense. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, damn, that's cool shit. It kind of opens you up to something else whenever you go on a show like that. And like you said, make yourself vulnerable or whatever, because you do become that. I didn't even mean to or want to, it just happened. And so when situations like that arise, I'm glad. I'm glad to be part of the community. I'm glad I could help your parents see that we're just normal people and there's nothing to be scared of or fearful of. It's like, if you're afraid for me going to hell, shouldn't you be afraid for me going to hell about lying, adultery, and all the other crazy sins that all these heterosexuals are committing? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Thanks for listening to Cruising. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps others discover our podcast. Cruising is produced by a small but mighty team of 3 queer women, Rachel Karp, Jen McGinnity, and me, your host and editor, Sarah Gabrielli. Our theme song is by Joey Freeman. You can support us at buymeacoffee.com/cruisingpod. Follow us on social media at cruisingpod, on Substack, cruising.substack.com, and on our website, www.cruisingpod.com.
Welcome and enter if you dare. Hi, I'm Hallie Keeper.
And I'm Allison Leiby. And together, we're the hosts of Ruined, a scary movie podcast where Hallie tells me the grisly details of a haunting new horror film each week.
Whether you're a terror hound like me or a scaredy cat like Allison, we've got so many thrills, chills, and obviously kills to share with you in every episode.
It's the podcast that'll have you saying, that was so funny. I should not have listened to it at night with all the lights off.
From the greats like The Exorcist and Poltergeist to modern classics such as Hereditary and Get Out to the freakiest new releases like A Quiet Place and Terrifier, we ruin them all and we'll leave you howling, mostly from laughter, sometimes because you're turning into a werewolf.
Ooh. Listen along as I try and guess the movie's twist, predict who will survive, and answer the hardest question of all. What would you do?
So please listen to new episodes of Ruined every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And whatever you do, we're begging you, please
keep it spooky.
Hi, I'm Brandy Basanti. For the last 15 years, I've starred on one of the most successful reality shows of all time, Story Tours. On my new show, The Real Reality, my guest and I will reveal the real story of what it's like navigating fame and notoriety. Because it's my show, I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. No filters, no rules, no network executives. And I believe that's what the world wants. Raw, real, authentic, and I'm gonna fucking give it to you. Though success is great, being in the public eye can come at a cost. Oftentimes, what you see on camera is not the real reality. On each episode of my show, we'll sit down with a different notable individual from the world of TV, film, sports, or internet fame. We will explore their unique story, what really happened on and off camera, how becoming famous has truly impacted their lives, and what their vision is for their future. In a world obsessed with celebrity, followers, and subscribers, the true story is often lost or even buried. This show will reveal what really happened. This show will reveal what people really felt. This show will reveal what fame is really like. This is The Real Reality. Subscribe now, wherever you get your podcasts.